Welcome to another episode of Happy, Healthy, Skeptical. We are your hosts, Jennifer Hobson and Christy Palermo. All right, Christy, so this one is a very large question because it has to do with a pretty big topic, but is there a time, not necessarily just in business, but in your life, that you haven't felt successful because you've either created parameters or limitations or definitions around what it means to be successful?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, because so often I think a lot of people feel this way is that I equate success to money, to titles, to earning a certain thing, say a car or what have you. So my personality definitely gets caught up on those things that I am not successful until I have that thing. So in my own personal business, there was a promotion I was going for, and on the way to this title that I was going for, there was so many successes in there, so many in this growth period I was going through and my team, and I kept like overlooking that. Because that was success too. I was just focused on, well, I'm not at the point I want to be at yet. So I was almost robbing myself of the happiness along the way. And I think that's something that we all need to be aware of, because it's a long road sometimes, and it's usually in a much different time frame than we expect. So if you're waiting sometimes months, sometimes years for a certain point, and you can't find the happiness and we actually talked about this a couple episodes ago, but talking about the successes and celebrating along the way, like you are robbing yourself of certain goals and things that are happening too. So I've tried to, or I'm saying trying because it's still a work in progress. I'm trying to identify where I can find the joy in the process, so that I can see that I am being successful along the journey and not just at that title or whatever it is that the major part of the goal I'm going for. So trying not to stay so tied to the title, the money, oh, well, I haven't lost all 40 pounds yet. Well, okay, but in the last couple of weeks, I lost a couple inches and 5 pounds. That's still success. That is still success that I want to celebrate and be excited about and share with people, because it can help other people find that success along their journey too. Because I know, for instance, too, lately I've been picking up books that are um, celebrities and big names that we know in their autobiographies, because I want the struggle. Like I really enjoy reading those books to hear how they made it. And if they have a book where they just jump to their successes and stories along the way, like, yes, it's entertaining, but I want to know how they started. I want to know what they went through, because that actually is something I can sometimes relate to, but also just find connection with, because it's like, okay, well, they did it. They really are a normal person. And so if they did it, then I can do something similar too.
So what you just said actually makes me totally change my thought train and I'll get back to that. So here's the different version. Do you think to be successful, you have to suffer?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say a lot of times I do think that it has to be hard. Like it's not worth it if it's not a struggle. Maybe because also having trained as a professional dancer, having trained circus, like the physical hard was like tears of pain. And like, well, I had to go through that to get to be where I wanted to be. But even then, there's just the joy in doing it. So yes, when I stop and think about it, then I don't think there has to be suffering at all. I think you can absolutely enjoy the journey.
It
I
makes
think
for a
things can
better
be,
story.
it does make for a better story. So um, I think it's inevitable, though. I think if you have a certain goal in mind, something big that's a different version of yourself, I think the discomfort and I think the growing pains are part of it. Because yes, it makes for a good story, but also it's kind of testing you to, like, how bad do you want this? Because you're gonna hit those roadblocks, hit those so seeming as failures, hitting those struggles, and we're going to question ourselves like, oh, maybe I'm not meant to do this, but really it's kind of a test for us, like, how bad do you want it? So I think it actually is inevitable, although I think that the whole journey is not struggle.
No, I think that's a good point. And I think sometimes when you're on a journey, no matter what it is, you have to figure out what is your level of hard, right? I think a lot of times we make our hard to be a lot bigger, a lot more struggle worthy. It's a higher mountain than it actually is. And when we do actually experience hard, we're taken back and go, oh, this is real hard, right? That day to day, just taking action on what I said I wanted to do, that's not actually the hard stuff. The hard stuff is the actual struggle, but knowing that it doesn't have to be a consistent struggle to achieve something. I think it's that happy median of, you know what, I do want a little bit of a struggle because I want to know I can overcome hard things. However, it doesn't mean every single day of my journey needs to be really shitty and hard. I think sometimes we need to, like you said, really celebrate the incremental personal successes, right? The things that you don't see on social, right? It's not the trips you earned or the car that you drive or the house that you have or that you're a perfect mom that created tiny little star sandwiches in your kid's bento box and you had a perfect day and no one yelled at each other and you didn't raise your voice and you got to the end of the day. I mean, that's great. You know what? I just want to be excited that I gave my kids 3 square meals and a snack that didn't have to look like a star. And I think you have to figure out what's your hard, what's your struggle, what's important to you, and then celebrate the successes. Sometimes it's just getting to the end of the day and everyone is alive. Sometimes it's, no, you know what, I said I was going to talk to 25 new people today. That was hard for me and I achieved it. And I think it's, you have to decide what is your hard and what is your level of incremental personal success. And it's not always the stuff that you see. And I think the biggest ones is your incremental personal success isn't compared to anyone else's.
That is such a great point and something that is overlooked a lot because, of course, with social media, we all know that we see everybody else's thing, even if they're on literally going for exactly the same thing we're going for. It can be really damaging to see what somebody else is doing. So yeah, identifying your own incremental, I think that's a great word to use there, incremental success, and finding the wins without the struggle. Yeah, and that you can have great days and successful days without that hard and just for the love of something too.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we don't have to always do something because we have to achieve something with it. I read that recently in the Brene Brown book, is that, you know, sometimes we can, as an adult, play a sport, not because we want to win championships, but because we enjoy playing basketball and we just want to have fun. And same thing as a fitness instructor, you know, a lot of times people are saying, well, you know, I want to go back to the gym because I want to lose this weight or I want to look this way. Well, how about I just want to go to a class because I want to move my body and I just want to have a little bit of endorphins. I'm not trying to achieve anything by that class. What I'm trying to achieve is just moving my body. And I think it goes back to, what is your description of success? Is your description of success around your fitness journey a six pack? Or is your description around fitness is that you can walk up and down the stairs independently? I think it's different for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just thinking of how recently, you know, I'm postpartum about 12 weeks now. And the last this is week 3 of starting to work out. And it's been very minimal things, but I was so excited that I was able to do 4 push-ups on my feet today, which I couldn't do before because I hadn't really worked out before the actual birth either. So it had been a long time since I had been doing push-ups. And so I was really excited. Like, that was a small win. I was like, oh my gosh, I went on my feet today. And
I
it
mean,
was
I think
only
that's
4.
a huge win. I can't do
But
that.
that was a huge win. Or even the ones on my knees, I had to stop if I was tried to get to 10. Like, but then I think I did 10 in a row on my knees at least. But these were small wins that I could see as success and reminding myself to celebrate it. And I told my husband about it and I was like, yeah, that was a win.
Because you could have said, oh, well, that was a disappointment. I can't do 10. No.
Yes.
That was amazing. I can do 4. I think it's also how we talk to ourselves.
Back to our mindset that we talk about all the time. And where does that mindset come from? Personal development. Personal development. We will sing
think-
about it every
I
day.
think such a huge percentage of success is how we perceive it and how we talk about it. All right, Christy, so if we're changing from, what we think of success and then how do we support our mindset around success, let me then ask you, how do you track when you are being successful or when you've achieved success?
I think it comes back to basically what we were talking about this whole episode in the incremental successes, but you have to define them, because if you don't, you just keep hanging on to the end goal, the end goal, the end goal, and it being so far away. And I know in my own journey, like getting really overwhelmed, which I know that word can go different ways, but getting overwhelmed with such a seeming big goal and working backwards from there into how can I break this down into things either, well, not either, but monthly and weekly and daily goals. So when it comes to, say, my business, I have a checklist for the day of the things I need to get done. So then it feels like I'm tacking off. I love to-do lists to be able to cross things off. Maybe a lot of you guys feel that way. But I feel like that's a great way to track success, because then you're doing the things daily, the small, seemingly insignificant things, you're doing them daily, but you're able to say, well, I know I'm on my way there and I know I'm going to get to my goal because I'm doing the things. But you have to also make sure that your list is going to move you forward and not just fluff work.
Yeah. I'm able to mark something off, right? People love checklists and being able to check things off. So I think you said a lot of good things. And what I heard from it, it's, those small bite-sized goals. We've heard it before. You can't eat an elephant in one bite. It's just not physically possible. But if you chop it into a bunch of tiny little bites, you could actually achieve that. And I think a lot of people are actually heading into the end of 2023. And what happens at the beginning of a year is people make these huge, not even just what do they call them? New Year resolutions, right? I don't even like the word resolution. I typically go with what's my New Year goal. But people wait, just like they do with sometimes their fitness journeys, right? They always, I can't ever get started unless it's a Monday. And I can't make new goals for myself unless it's the beginning of the year. Well, I haven't achieved anything in 2023. It's a crapshoot. Let me wait until 2024, which I think is so crazy, because last week it was actually 90 days, last Tuesday, 90 days until the end of 2023. And I'm here to tell you, you can accomplish so many things in 90 days. Your life can look completely different from what it is now. However, it's not going to look different unless you really identify, visualize, and decide what those little goals are along the way. And I love that you said, sometimes they feel really insignificant, but if they're the actions that are moving you forward, being able to feel accomplished daily and feeling successful weekly is going to feed into wanting to continue to achieve the big, huge goal at the end of it. I think sometimes when we poo-poo on ourselves because we haven't achieved the big end goal, we don't want to take as much action. Well, I'm not successful yet. I haven't achieved that thing. So we stop taking the daily action that moves the needle forward instead of going, hey, I talked to the one person, or I did the one workout, or I made the healthy meal, right? The things that we can incrementally go, hey, I did a really freaking awesome job. So I think you hit it right on the head. Is rather than waiting for the big payout, cash it in daily.
Cash it in daily. Yes. I think that's a great way to put it. And I love that you mention resolutions, or whichever word you want to use for the year, because when you think of it that way, how if you're only tracking success by the end of the year, did you hit your goal? That's a long time to not track. Yeah, to check in. So monthly is a great time if we're talking about a new year, something you set in the new year. Monthly is a great time to check in to see what you're doing. But I think also it just came to mind is also filling your calendar with the thing. If you're an entrepreneur and you need to have a certain number of people you're talking to, then you need to make sure you have a certain number of phone calls on your calendar daily and weekly. Like, so you have to fill that calendar. If you want to feel healthier and perhaps lose weight, you have to have those times in your calendar when you're going to the gym, and also in your calendar maybe putting a recipe list for the week. So that's where I say you can fill your calendar, because I feel like it's a very what's the word I'm looking for, tactful thing you can do with putting things in there so that you can feel successful.
For sure. And I think that goes back to the episode where we talked about, the calendar and how the calendar drives everything. And knowing that it doesn't have to be January 1st of any year to decide to do something new or to get started on something. I genuinely have to check in with myself really, really often to also take a temperature. How close am I? How much maybe more efficiently do I need to work? Maybe I need to hustle a little bit because the last, 3 months, I didn't show up the way that I intended. And I think those are the things that you need to take stock of. Have you shown up the way that you wanted to? Have you shown up the way you need to achieve the goals that you want? They're two different things. Want and need are two completely different conversations, and you have to identify, does success right now, is it a want or is it a need? Needs have to come before wants, right? And sometimes we forget and we make these crazy lofty goals, and then we don't actually figure out how do I actually get there? I want to lose 50 pounds this year, but I haven't identified how many days a week I have to work out, what I need to change in my nutrition. Do I need a personal trainer? Can I do this on my own, right? Those are all the things we have to do. Same as an entrepreneur. I was talking to someone at a networking meeting yesterday, and we were talking about how so many people shoot themselves in the foot because they don't actually know their demographic. Right? They're trying to create a business, and maybe it's selling to someone, maybe it's supporting someone, whatever that business is. But if you haven't identified who your demographic is, you might be spending all of your time catering to people that have nothing to do with what you're doing. For me, I work a lot with working moms, right? Working females. That's my main demographic. Would I like it to be all over the place? For sure. But it's really hard to pinpoint a demographic when I'm trying to support, 80-year-old men, 50-year-old men, 60-year-old women, 25-year-old, like it's all across the board. So where can I make the biggest impact? And I think people have to take a step back and go, what am I trying to achieve? That's great. That's the hardest part. Then work it backwards, like you said, and go, but how do I get there? Right? That's the big goal. But if I haven't figured out the action steps, then guess what? Next year, it's still a goal. And next year, it's still a goal. And you feel like you're on this revolving door. And it's not that you're not successful, because that might be what you're telling yourself. You just actually haven't figured out how to get there.
100%. It's such a great way to look at it. And as you had mentioned before, how we're at the end of the year and a lot of people are just calling it a wash. There's still plenty of time until the end of December. Like you said, just under 90 days. Like that's still a lot of time to have progress. So you can track your success. So maybe you did not show up for yourself this whole rest of beginning of the year. And you know what? You just have to let it go because you didn't do the things you said. So you have to acknowledge that you didn't do those things, but that you still have the time to get it done and make some progress and get to a certain amount of success to then start January at a level you're not at right now. So you can make that progress. So work backwards from the last 3 months and okay, what can I do to hit my goal now from today as I'm listening to this? What can I do and set into my calendar for a specific goal to get to January, and so that I'm starting January in a different place than I'm in right now, because it's not too late. It's not too late. It's not too late.
We can see you've been making up your song at the end, but I think you hit it up, you hit it right. We have to let the timeline go if success is the ultimate, final destination, if you will. Because I mean, in all reality, time is a figment of our imagination. It's something that we have constructed to measure something. We've mentioned him before, but Ed Mylett, he had a podcast and he talked about the idea of he has 3 days in the average person's 1 day. So if you look back and you haven't showed up the way that you want to, then it's time to hustle. It's trying to see what can I create in the same amount of 24 hours that there is no matter what, but take away the timeline, take away the constructs of time and go, okay, how am I going to show up from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m.? And then how am I going to show up from 10 to 2? And if you're, again, breaking it down into bite-sized sections, you're going to feel accomplished at the end of the day. You're going to feel like, damn, in one person's one day, I just had 3 days worth of moving the needle forward.
Yeah, I really liked that in his book, his latest book. Oh, what was the name of it? The
Or one more.
Power of One More, yes. And breaking it down into 3 days, I was like, wow, I never really thought of it that way. But when I do it that way, I'm way more productive in a day.
You feel a
Three
little
times
lighter
more.
too, right? I was having this conversation with someone the other day, especially when you're talking about success and goals. You spend a whole lot more energy and time thinking and talking about those things versus doing. I'm here to tell you the weight on your shoulders of thinking and talking about the things you want to accomplish is a lot heavier than trying them and even getting rejected, right?
Yes, it's exhausting.
It's hard. Imagining being rejected actually hurts a lot more than actually being rejected. I'm here to tell you, I've had both happen. And I just think the worry, so many people, we worry about the same thing twice before it's even happened. And then if it actually comes true, then when it happens and all we did is we forced ourselves to worry twice, or we worried and it never even happens. So we actually just expended energy for no friggin' reason. But I think we should wrap it up, Chrissy. I have loved your success story. I've loved being a part of it and watching it, because I think what I've taken away from it is that success doesn't look the same for anyone. And like we said earlier, comparison is the thief of joy. You need to eliminate comparison to truly feel successful, because if you get to what you quote unquote believe is success and you're still comparing, you will never actually be fulfilled, and you will never actually feel any moment of happiness. Thank you for listening to Happy, Healthy, and Skeptical. We are your hosts, Jennifer Hobson and Christy Palermo, and we genuinely want to hear from you. So you can find us on Instagram at Happy, Healthy, Skeptical.